Hey, Shalom, welcome back. You want to know how we go from this to this? Well, I'm going to show you in this presentation, but you got to be really paying attention. You remember the Trump coin, the temple Trump coin with Cyrus the Great on one side, and well, it's Cyrus and Trump on one side, and the actual temple on the other. And it was attributed to Isaiah 45. You guys remember this? We talked about this years ago. I was telling you this. Here we're seeing it play out, you guys. Here we're seeing it play out in real time. I'm going to teach you some Bible prophecy tonight, today, tomorrow, wherever you are. So, Isaiah 45. Now, many saw this because when Trump was first elected, he was the 45th president, right? He is a builder. They made him an honorary master mason when he was elected. So there's this whole building kind of thing behind him. But then, of course, the connection with Cyrus from a prophecy in Isaiah, where Yah is calling Cyrus the Great. But you can probably, to get a better understanding of this, replace Cyrus with Trump. Let's read it like that. Thus saith Yah. Thus saith Yah to his anointed, to Trump, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. I will loosen the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. I will go before thee to make the crooked places straight. I will break into pieces the gates of brass, and cut in asunder the bars of iron. I will give thee the treasures of darkness, and the hidden riches of secret places, that thou may knowest that I, the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, which called thee, Donald Trump, by name, am the Elohim of Israel. For Jacob, my servant's sake, and Israel, mine elect, I have called thee by name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. You know, Donald Trump is not really a Christian, you guys. I know he has a backing that is Christian. We're going to talk about those Christian Nationalists and evangelical Christian Zionists. A lot to learn here. That's who back him, but he is not a Christian. He is absolutely converted to Judaism, as per the marriage with the Kushner family and the Trump family. That merger, Trump, I believe, did it out of respect. He pays homage and respect to the grave of the Rebbe, as well as Malay does the same thing, you guys. So those are the things. Those things are done by rabbinic Jews. Okay. All right. So I am Yah. There is none else. There is no God besides me. I gird thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west, there is none besides me. I am Yah, and there is none else. I form the light, I create darkness, I make peace and create evil. I, Yah, do all these things. So don't get it conflated, you guys. He is in control, and he's got both light and darkness in his hand and in his control. So what we're seeing happening needs no interference, nor enabling, nor instigating from Christian Zionists, which sometimes feel the need that they have to engage with prophecy and even enable prophecy to bring about the second coming of Yeshua. Guys, this is so complex. I'm trying not to overwhelm you with a lot, and I got a lot to share with you before we even get into the two codes. One is the Dome of the Rock, and the other code is Synagogue of Satan. But make no mistake about it, Bible prophecy is happening right before you, and Donald Trump is right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of it. So we're going to be talking about that and much more, because this is not just a Christian thing, a Judaism thing. It is also a Muslim thing. And I'm going to show you that, how all three of these things are going to come together with the formation of the third temple, right? We're going to see this. This is going to happen. And there is enablers that is enabling this to happen. So stay tuned to what I got for you here in just a moment.
So many people in the Christian, Muslim, and even the Jewish world are wondering, is a third temple coming soon? Especially now, with the ongoing conflict, what would the ramifications of a Jewish temple be for the region? Remember, those who are fighting against the existence of the state of Israel see it as the War of Al-Aqsa, which is the place where the temple was located. Oh sure, Muslim scholars often deny that a temple ever existed in that location. But historically, there's always been a consensus about the Temple Mount being, well, the Mount of the Temple. In fact, a document entitled A Brief Guide to Al-Haram al-Sharif, published by the Supreme Muslim Council in 1925, says about the Temple Mount, its identity with the site of Solomon's temple is beyond dispute. This too is the spot, according to universal belief, on which David built there an altar unto the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. I can only say amen to that. So yes, the Jewish people will build a third temple. The Bible predicts this temple in Jerusalem will be linked to the rise of the Antichrist, who will appear to bring peace to the Jewish people, but will ultimately betray them. As prophesied in Daniel chapter 9, he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. In the middle of the week, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. Jesus, Yeshua, referred to this person as well in Matthew 24, verses 15 and 16. So, when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Should we then fear that every new development in the Middle East is leading to the third temple and the end of the world? No. It's vital to stay anchored in God's peace. Yeshua, Jesus, tells us in that same Matthew 24 passage in verse 6, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled. Why shouldn't we be troubled? Because God is not surprised by any developments, as it all works together with His plan. Let me ask you, if Iran, Hamas, and all their sympathizers are fighting against the plans of God, who should worry, you or them? So although a third temple will rise and be desecrated, believers should not focus on rumors or headlines, but on the...
Here's the thing about the temple. Y'all gave him the house. He did say, build a house for my name. We're going to see that in one of the codes here. That's actually interesting. The placement of that verse, where it falls into the code, but also some corresponding. Right before the destruction of the second temple, in the time of Amos, when Israel was worshiping other gods. They were worshiping idols. They were doing baby sacrifices and things. They were doing terrible things. And Amos, Yah speaks through Amos, and where Yah says to him, "I'm going to turn your feast into mourning, and the songs of the temple into howlings." Right? We'll look at that in just a moment. Well, he actually fulfills that many, many years later. In fact, this is after the time of Yeshua, because Yeshua added to that prophecy, specifically the temple was going to be destroyed, and that their feast would be turned into mourning. And I find it really ironic that the Jews, after the destruction of the second temple, instead of celebrate, they didn't celebrate Yom Teruah, not Yom Teruah, Shavuot correctly after that. They invented a new day, and they had something called Tish B'Av. And then the ninth of Av is when the temple was destroyed, and they're mourning so it actually, what Amos prophesied, "I will turn your feast into mourning." The Jews invent a new thing called Tish B'Av, the 3 weeks of mourning, and then up to the ninth of Av, where they're mourning the destruction of the temple. "I will turn the songs of the temple into howlings." In fact, let's go look at that. You really need to understand the depth of what you're actually seeing, because the building of the third temple, first of all, is an abomination, but Yah does it. You see in Isaiah where he says, "I do both good and evil." He's allowing this thing because the Antichrist Bible prophecy has to be fulfilled. Bottom line. So bad things are going to happen, and Yah's going to allow these things going to happen, and he's going to even have instruments to do these things. Okay? So here's what he says in Amos 8. So this is many years before Yeshua and what Yeshua prophesied. So Yeshua was adding to this. Okay? "Thus saith Yah, Elohim showed me, and behold, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, Amos, what seest thou? And I said, I see a basket of summer fruit. And then he said unto me, the end is coming upon my people Israel. I will not again pass by them anymore." Talking about those that were, they had defiled themselves. The land and the temple was surely defiled, right? Even when the time that Yeshua come in there was an illegitimate priesthood. The temple was defiled. The Ark of the Covenant was not even there. Therefore, Yah was not there. Okay? It was the time of the Pharisees and of fake Jews. The synagogue of Satan, if you will. We're going to see that here in just a minute as well. But it was corrupt, is the bottom line. And Yah does away with it. When Yeshua comes on the scene and he sacrifices his own son, fulfilling prophecy, by the way, all along the way, he puts an end to this because Yeshua was the final sacrifice. All right? A basket of summer fruit, and thus saith Yah unto me, the end is come upon my people Israel. I will not again pass by them. And the songs of the temple shall be howlings in that day. And I want you to understand something. In the siege of the temple, when the second temple was destroyed, it began at this time of the season of the year, right before Passover. Titus gets there. There are people, thousands of people coming from all over, coming into the city, and once they get there, they're trapped. And now they're trapped there through one whole cycle of feast, which is 7 feasts. It's like 9 months they were there under the siege, going through the destruction of the second temple until all of them were completely wiped out. It was one complete feast cycle. So watch what he says. There shall be many dead bodies in every place, and there was. And they shall cast them forth with silence. Hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, to make the poor of the land fail, saying, when will the new moon be gone, and when shall we sell corn, and the Sabbath day that we can set forth wheat, making the ephah small, and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances of deceit, that we might buy the poor up for silver and the needy for a pair of shoes, yea, and sell the refuse of wheat. The Adonai had sworn by the excellency of Jacob, surely I will never forget their works. Shall not the land tremble for this, and every one mourn that dwelleth therein, and shall rise up wholly as a flood, and it shall be cast out and drowned by the flood of Egypt. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith Yah, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in a clear day. I think this is a reference to the when he put an end to the temple was at the crucifixion, and that exact thing happened. The sun was blotted out for 6 hours. I will darken the earth until in a clear day, right? Here's what he says next. I will turn your feasts into mournings and all your songs into lamentations. I will bring upon sackcloth upon all your loins and baldness upon every head, and I will make as the mourning of an only son at the end thereof as a bitter day. Behold, the days come, saith Yah, that I will send famine in the land, and not a famine of bread nor of thirst, but of hearing the words of Yah, because he was no longer there. He was no longer there. And what happened to those that were, by the way, the Jewish people were under the Roman thumb for 500 years more, and they were exiled to different communities like Yavne and even back into Babylon. And then into Europe. They were exiled for 500 years. They were not allowed to come to where the temple was until many years later, and I felt till the time of Rashi or something like that. One of the sages come back and he wept when he saw the place where the temple was, right? I will turn your feasts into mourning, your songs into lamentations. This is where we get the Tish B'Av and the 3 weeks of mourning. And I will bring sackcloth upon, we see that. They shall wander from sea to sea, and from north and even the east, and shall run to and fro and seek the word of Yah, and shall not find it. So that's a fulfillment that's actually happened. And even Yeshua added to that, you guys, in what he prophesied. So we got a lot to cover. There's a few terms that we need to just talk about, you guys, because if I don't do this, you're not going to know there's going to be certainly going to be people saying, what is he talking about? So we're going to be talking about things like Zionism, Christian Zionism, Christian Nationalism, seven mountain mandates, things like that. And that is just from the Christian perspective. You got to remember there's a Jewish, a Muslim, and a Christian perspective. And I'm going to focus on a couple of these in this presentation. So I got to break it down for you so you can see the significance of these two codes that we're going to look at. Did I even show you that yet? So this is the Dome of the Rock code we're going to talk about. And this is Synagogue of Satan. You may recall in one of the last codes that I put out, there was a term that appeared. Martin talked about this in one of his codes. Well, the last one he put out. Who are the Jews? Who is Yehudi? And I didn't address that because I wasn't trying to get myself erased. But the Synagogue of Satan, obviously he nailed that. So we're going to talk about that. I do have that code. And it's forming nicely with some symmetry, interesting anomalies there. We're going to talk about that one as well in this presentation. So stay tuned. I got a lot to share with you guys. All right. So the first term that we're going to talk about, and I'm starting here because this is what I came out of. But those that know my story, you know that I was a evangelical Christian Zionist from the Pentecostal church. I was raised Pentecostal most of my life. So that would be like Perry Stone and many others. It also includes a lot of. Here's what happened to me. Let me just say this. I read my Bible, and what I discovered was, and it was a dark night of my soul, that everything that I had been indoctrinated was wrong. And I had to let it go. And we're talking about dispensationalism, the pre-trib rapture doctrine, the replacement of, the dispensation believes, the replacement theory believes that God divorced Israel, and therefore that he's divorced from her, and he took the church. So the church is the new Israel, right? And then when I read my Bible and I discovered that's not. I mean, that's using, that's picking and choosing scripture and twisting it, and it was more in line with God did divorce Israel, but he promises to bring her back again through their seed years later. And what he did was he took Israel and scattered them like seed in the Judeo-Christian countries. And that became, so in other words, Israel's hidden in the church. What we see in the land of Israel right now, which, by the way, came forth through a lot of enabling and people who did not even believe in a creator because they were atheists and former religious Jews from the Holocaust. No longer, they walked away from God, but yet they took scriptures and prophecies about and claims from the Bible as their banner to take the land, right? And so the very first ones that took Israel were not necessarily Christians or even religious Jews. You guys, we got to keep that in mind. Okay. Okay. So Jews, there's so many terms to cover here. Let me stick to what I'm starting with. Christian Zionists before we get into anything else. This is so complicated. And there's a reason why we have to identify all these things before we get into codes and talk about Bible prophecy and what's happening, guys. Unless you know, you're not going to know. Christian Zionism is a political and religious ideology that supports the return of the Jewish people to the Holy Land, believing it fulfills biblical prophecies. It emerged in the 19th century and is often associated with the belief with the establishment of Israel in 1948 as a prerequisite of the second coming of Jesus Christ. So all these people see it as the end. This is what the end is, the return of Yeshua. So they want to see all of these things happen, even if they have to enable them to happen, even as going that far. And by the way, the Iranian Muslims that believe in that kind of Islam, they believe the same thing, that they have to enable and create chaos and Armageddon before all these things happen. So there's this trilogy of ideologies that are coming together in perfect unison, and they all have their own prophecies, you guys, that are being fulfilled right now. So this is very important. All right. So the Christian Zionists, Trump is surrounded by them. Pete Hegseth, we're going to see him in just a minute, where he's speaking in a clip where he speaks about the third temple. Paula White, Trump's Christian pastor. Are you kidding me? A heretic and an adulterer who's been caught in adultery with Benny Hinn. This is who Trump chooses as his Christian advisor. All right. So dispensationalism. This is also where dispensationalism comes from the Christian Zionist. Now, not to be confused with Christian Nationalist, which is another faction that we have to be aware of. Now, Christian Nationalist, you can be a Christian nationalist and not a evangelical Christian Zionist. However, just about all of the Zionist Christians are Christian nationals. So it's kind of conflating there in a little bit. Christian nationalism is the belief that the United States is fundamentally a Christian nation and that the government should promote Christian values and maintain a Christian identity. That sounds all good, right? And then you start looking at some of the other core beliefs and social implications, and they're not tolerant of any other belief, even to the point where they're militant. What's his name? He's kind of hot right now and trendy a little bit. Nick Fuentes, he's a Christian nationalist, all right? But he's also a Nazi. So there is, in each one of these, by the way, there is a spectrum. You have a left and a right. So not every Christian nationalist is a Nazi, but you do have Nazis in the Christian nationalist movement. Anyway, 7 mandates. By the way, this is what Charlie Kirk was. And sometimes Christian nationalists come against the Zionist, all right? Which is what the issue is with Charlie Kirk. 7 mandates. Real quick, just so you understand, Charlie Kirk was a 7 mandate guy. 7 mountain mandate, or 7 mountains of dominionism, a dominionist conservative Christian ideology with evangelical Christian, particularly independent charismatic groups, that holds that there are 7 aspects of society that believers seek to dominate: family, religion, education, media, arts and entertainment, business, and government. All right. So they have a 7 mountain mandate. This is a real thing. This is what Charlie Kirk was. He wasn't a Zionist. He was a 7 mountain mandate, though, and a Christian nationalist. And he did come against and was warned because he had a lot of Jewish money coming to him, you guys. So you see, I got to be so careful on the things that I say. I can be cryptic, but I can't say things. He was taken out, and we know he was taken out. All right, there's no question. We're not even going down that rabbit hole right now. I'm just going to continue with my presentation. So in Judaism, you also have those that see what is going on and are taking advantage of it. They can see that the Christians and the Muslims doing their thing will eventually produce or enable what they're going to put on the mountain, the temple. All right. How do I know that? Because everybody's talking about it. It's the buzz. It is the buzz. And sometimes when you do research, you got to look at all of them. And so there are Muslims that are talking about this. So I'm going to just give you a couple of clips. I'll leave links down below that you can go and look at later, and see a little more thoroughly what I'm talking about here.
Dr. Abdullah Maruf, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to the Thinking Muslim.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me. Jazakallah khair.
This week on the Thinking Muslim, we have an urgent message from Dr. Abdullah Maruf.
I never felt that there is a very close and imminent danger to the entity of Al-Aqsa Mosque as I'm feeling now.
Dr. Abdullah is a Palestinian academic and former media and public relations officer at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. He serves as a professor of Islamic history in Istanbul. His rabbi, who recently gave a speech, Israelis would bomb Masjid al-Aqsa.
I would pretend that one missile came from Iran and shoot it down. Then all the Arabs will go against Iran, and will be the end of the problems. You make them fight with each other, this bunch of lunatics.
And build the third temple in its place.
Red heifer has to be burnt. It is a ritual that has to be done in order to purify a person, in order to be able to enter the house of God or the Temple Mount. We're living in the Zionist religious Israel. Now, The prophecy is not the problem. The problem is you believe that you have to bring the apocalypse to the whole world. These fanatics are so possessed with this idea. This is the new Israel. They believe that they are acting on behalf of God. It shows us that the whole world is in imminent danger.
All right, so he goes on, you guys, with this interview. It's fascinating. I'm not going to flood you
Dr.
with
Abdullah
I do want to touch on a couple, like he talks about a false flag operation in Jerusalem. Let's listen for a few on that.
Have done that. Now, why taking this video again and publish it this time? It is actually because there is some kind of a feeling around the area, and some kind of a feeling amongst Muslims that something could happen to Masjid al-Aqsa during these days.
Yeah.
And this idea could be clicking into minds of some extremists in Israel. And that is why it was published again, in order just to tell the Israelis that don't even think about it. Because if you think about it, if anything happens to Masjid al-Aqsa, it's just a warning that we will know that it is you. And by the way, even the Iranian media published it again, and they said exactly the same, that if, la samahallah, may Allah forbid.
All right, so what he's saying there basically is they understand and knew and even warned, don't even think about taking out and blaming it on Iran. We're going to know that it's you, right? So they smell a plot afoot, and it's not beyond being plausible, folks. Let's go to the concept of a third temple. I want you to hear that, what he says here, because they do have an understanding.
Credible it is. I know, of course, we question the credibility of these sources because we believe in the ultimate revelation of Quran. But I'm saying from their perspective, how credible are these sources?
You see, there is one note here. First, I'm going to give the note, then I'm going to give the perspective, their perspective. One note here. I remember that once Benjamin Netanyahu was standing in the Knesset, I think, and he said that Jerusalem is mentioned in the Bible, which is the Old Testament for him, the Torah, more than 600 times, and it's not mentioned in the Quran at all. So the word Yerushalayim or Jerusalem. So it was so funny for me. Why? Because Jerusalem is not mentioned in the first 5 chapters or 5 books of the Torah at all. And we have in Nablus, for example, we have a group of Jewish people who are the Samarites, who do not believe in the whole, they only believe in the first 5 books of the Torah. And that means that Jerusalem is not even mentioned in the books that they believe in, from Genesis all the way. So it was quite funny for me to have this comparison done in this arrogant way by Benjamin Netanyahu. So that's just a point here. But let's say from the perspective of the Israelis, and who believes in this idea of the third temple. They believe that when God gave the tablets to Moses, and the Israelites started their journey in the wilderness. God was going with them, guiding them throughout this wilderness. And
All right, so that let's move on, you guys. That's actually not the one commenting about the third temple I wanted to show you. Anyway, great video. Make sure you look at that link down there, and then go see the rest of that. Here's the one I want you to see. This guy here.
Was the UN ambassador, a famous rabbi named Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. So he said to Netanyahu, what are you doing to prepare the world? What are you doing to bring about the Messiah? Because there's only a few hours left. And Netanyahu, he referenced Purim. I mean, the attack on Iran was just before the holiday. So he's making that connection.
All right, let's just kind of track with this. You saw this in the last codes, you guys. We talked about Purim, the blood moon that happened 3 years in a row on Purim, and then the significance of the attack on Iran. I mean, this all started around that time. So there is a definite connection of it. I find it fascinating that Muslims see the same thing and they're drawing the same conclusions.
He's making that connection. The leadership in Iran, anyone who opposes the modern state of Israel is a Amalekite, and they're fair game when he said, remember what Amalek has done to you. So they already have the blueprints of the third temple.
There's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
The sacrifice of the red heifer was a necessary condition.
And you're saying it's taken place already?
It's already happened. Yeah.
It's already happened.
Yeah, it's already happened. They sacrificed one. They said it was a test run, but I don't know if I really believe that it was a test run. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't find that very convincing.
This Ramadan, Hijaz is inviting you to join the 30 Days of Goodness Challenge. Capture a short video of a simple, sincere act of kindness.
Let's fast forward to the commercial there.
Yeah. So the story of Purim is detailed in the book of Esther, which is in the Hebrew Bible. Now, most historians don't believe the book of Esther is actually historical. They consider it a historical novella, which is to say it's fiction. There's no evidence that Xerxes, had a Jewish wife named Esther. Herodotus doesn't mention anything like that. But nonetheless, they believe that it's historically accurate. And so Esther is the wife of Xerxes, the king of Persia, the 5th century BCE. And then Xerxes has a minister named Haman or Haman, right? And Haman, we're told, is an Agagite. So what is an Agagite?
Agagite, yes, but ask my next question.
Yeah. So an Agagite apparently is a descendant of Agag, and Agag was the king of the Amalekites, or the king of Amalek. So this goes all the way back to the time of Saul, the first king of Israel, who was commanded by...
All right, so the Amalekites are the enemy. All right, so he's established that. I want to fast forward to where he starts talking about, well, let's listen, the greater Israel, because that's another issue, and even a term you may be hearing thrown around right now, the greater Israel. This is a part of the agenda that we're seeing unfolding right now, right?
Rhetoric that comes out is the phrase of greater Israel. That gets used in public debate quite often. Sometimes, meaning the West Bank, Gaza, perhaps the Golan Heights as well, and sometimes meaning a much larger map spanning Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Ali, how mainstream is the idea of the greater Israel idea within Judaism, or is it a nationalistic, radical nationalistic view?
No, I mean, Greater Israel, that's something that's found in Genesis chapter 15. I mean, it's called Eretz Yisrael HaShelema, which literally means like the fullness of Israel or something like that. And so what we have in terms of between the river and the sea, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Greater Israel, according to Genesis chapter 15, and this is something that the Orthodox tradition take very seriously, Christian Zionism takes very seriously, is all of the land between two rivers. And I mean, there's a theory that the Israeli flag represents, because there's two blue lines.
All right, so you're touching on that. Go research that subject. Let's go to the third temple.
Concrete here. In classical Jewish Messianism, why is building the temple such a central milestone?
It's a very good question. So let me give you a little bit of history here. I think it's important for us to understand the history of Messianism in Jewish tradition. So when the Israelites were in Babylon in captivity, so here we're looking at the 6th century before the Common Era, this is called the exilic period during this time. So they were taken, so the southern kingdom of Judah was attacked in 586 BCE by the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar. And so you have the Israelites sitting in Babylon in captivity. During this time, Jewish prophets, Israelite prophets and seers, they began predicting that a Davidic ruler, a Davidic king would arise, and that he would somehow rebuild or restore or purify, rededicate the temple. Because remember now, Nebuchadnezzar and his forces, they destroyed the first temple, the Temple of Solomon, which was built around 930 before the Common Era. That temple was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar in the 6th century BCE. Okay, so this Davidic king, this Davidic ruler, he's called Hamelech HaMashiach ben David, which is to say the Davidic King Messiah, the King Messiah, son of David, or just simply the Messiah. Okay, and so you have passages in the book of Ezekiel, for example, Ezekiel chapter 40 to 48, Jeremiah 23, Zechariah chapter 6, which seem to describe this Davidic Messiah who's going to come in the future.
All right, so we got a Messiah figure, but also the Cyrus figure. So what's the significance? Is Cyrus the Mashiach in the sense that he's going to declare himself God? No, I don't think that's what's going to happen here. I think Trump is going to be highly involved in the enabling, even funding the construction of the third temple in the very spot that they believe that it's supposed to go. And that is going to happen, you guys. So everybody can see it. Even the Muslims see this. Those of us that have the eyes to see can see this. So much to share. Here's another clip that I thought was significant. I'm going to be, and I already was. The other presentation I did, I was censored. All right, and kind of warned. So I got to be really careful with my words and who may or may not get offended. But nope, I should probably not show you that. Let me show you this. This is a clip from Tucker Carlson that I'm in line with, and it kind of goes to the point where I'm telling you, there are people who are handlers around Trump who are putting this in his ear. 45th, Cyrus, build the temple. He's turning the world upside down. This is
these people like Paula White and Ted Cruz.
Gary Bajan Bowler, okay, that's saying this to Tucker Carlson.
And Dan Patrick, they believe that the Dome of the Rock will be torn down and they will rebuild that third temple. They're saying it now. Look at Pete Hegseth. There will be a rebuilding of this temple. It is heretical and it is anti-Christian.
I know that.
Because they're going to bring in the animal sacrifices again. And the most anti-Semitic thing that they believe is that 2/3 of the Jews are going to be slaughtered. They're just manipulating them and using them. They don't really care.
Everything you've said is true. Jesus describes himself as the
All right. So
temple.
Yes, he is the temple.
He said
So she's right about that, and I'm in agreement. And we are called to read and understand Bible prophecy, but we're not called to enable it. I follow everything that's going on with the Temple Institute, but I don't donate money to it, and go on social media promoting the third temple. I might teach about it, the significance and what it means. It is a benchmark in time. When we see that happen, and incidentally, a lot of these Christian Zionists believe they're not even going to be here. They're going to be raptured out, right? Anyway, it's a very complex thing. It's like I said, it's not just Christian or Jewish. It's also Muslim that are part of this. And incidentally, the third temple that will come around is not just because it's an ecumenical thing where it's a interfaith temple where it's all the same God, right? So whether it's Allah or Jehovah or whatever, it's an interfaith thing that they foresee. That's not what the Bible predicts will happen. Incidentally, this is not the one that is prophesied that all nations would come and worship. That's the city that John saw coming down, the New Jerusalem, with the new temple. That's a part of it. That's a part of the second coming. All right, so let's not get all those things confused. What these Zionists don't understand is John saw a new city coming down. Incidentally, this goes against the rapture. You go up. No, heaven comes down. That's what the Bible said. And I was a pre-trib rapture guy until I understood, well, wait a minute, we don't go up to heaven. Heaven actually comes down. When it is seen all those that are dressed in white that are coming back in the second coming, and then we are called up to be with them. Where's that? Well, in the New Jerusalem. That's going to be on earth. That's that's the ones that were harvested first, the fruits of the first harvest, right? So, because we've got so much going on in Christianity and Catholicism, and there's 40,000 of them, guys, in Protestantism. They all believe different things. Who's right? Who's wrong? These things get lost and hidden from us. Like I said, I was an evangelical, Zionist, Christian, Pentecostal. And when I started reading my word and understand who I was and got over the identity crisis and realized, oh my gosh, I've been a heretic. I had to do an about face and go in a different direction. Guess what? A lot of people walked away from that and from me. I remember it vividly, vaguely, vividly, definitely vividly. Anyway, this brings us to where what we're seeing now. We will see, I believe, because it's in the code. The Dome of the Rock there, I got destruction twice in the plain text, right through the meat of the actual code. We're going to look at it in just a moment. Let me make sure I don't have any more clips. Let's cancel out all of this. And yeah, now we are ready to look at some codes. So if you guys remember 2015, 2016, we did look at the third temple. And this is what we found. So we're going to be building on this and looking further into other codes. Like I said, this was originally from 2015, 2016. So there are terms in this that were relevant then, and there are probably additional terms that are here, like with Trump and his connection to this, Kushner as an example. So you can see all the terms there in the original Third Temple table. This one's called Revisited. Let's go to the Dome of the Rock, because I think we're gonna see Bible prophecy happen. And by the way, I'm not for and against. I'm not enabling. I'm just informing you what we're seeing and how relevant it is. So, Dome of the Rock. Here's what we got in the purple or magenta or whatever you want to call it. That's the Dome of the Rock access term right there. And two terms, and it comes up in reverse. So it's not, it reads in the text this way from right to left, but the word destroyed is right here in the text from left to right. The Hey, the Resh, the Vav, and the Samik, they're twice. And this black term, which you can see that shares the Samik there, runs right through that. I'm going to show you that in the translator. I'm not going to say that word out loud, but I'll show you that in just a moment. So we do have the date, which is 2026. The word war is here a few times. It's in the plain text. It's here as an ELS, and here as an ELS. We got a couple of clusters, one on the far right and on the left. Let's take the right first. We have Iran and in the blue, and an Iran in the yellow. One Israel over here. All right, so Israel does appear in the plain text several times. You can see mostly on this side. So it almost looks like a geographical map where you got Iran on one side and Israel on the other. But the reason you'd have one little Israel in here is because there's boots on the ground that's been instigating. I said this during the overthrow or the attempted coup of the government when the protests were happening, that it was highly probable that there were agents on the ground that were assisting this. And so we got one Israel here. Blood moon happening in the time of Purim with the last couple of one of the last tables we looked at, the fall of Iran happening at Purim time. You saw that in one of the videos. It's very relevant. We see a blood moon here. It's also, by the way, in the third temple, it seems to be very relevant when we see signs in the heaven. Over on the other side, we got Islam in the blue, Ishmael in the green, Shemitah in the blue here, Shemitah, which is a 7-year period, and Shemitah here as well. Elijah does appear twice. Elijah, one of the two witnesses. The Mahdi, Islam is looking for their Messiah, right? Judaism is looking for their Messiah, and so is Christianity. They're all looking for their Messiah. Here's the Mahdi right there in the green. Let's see. Let's read a couple of the places where we got highlighted there. Let's look at the one going right through the middle of it. I find this one really, really fascinating because it's literally where Yah is calling David in 2 Samuel to, well, you'll see here. Let's look. When thy days are fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, that shall proceed out of thy body, and will establish his kingdom, and shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Well, we know that house he's talking about is the temple. He shall build a temple for my name. That's running right through there, connected to Shemitah there. This one's interesting here. This is Isaiah chapter 2, verse 1. And it shall come to pass in the last day that the mountain of Yah's house shall be established on top of the mountains, Mount Moriah, and shall be exalted above the hills. All nations shall flow to it, and many people shall go and say, Come ye, let us go to the mountain of Yah, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in the path out of Zion and go forth, and the word of Yah from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people. And then they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their pruning hooks. The nation shall not lift up sword against nation. So there will be peace, right? In the last days. And then this was really interesting. This is literally the prophecy I read to you earlier from Amos about the howlings in the temple court, and he was going to turn their feast days into mourning. That's right here. All right, so now let's go look at what I found with synagogue of Satan or temple of Satan. The word is synonymous. This is the access term. Right here, we got the year 2026 in yellow going one way, and then 2026 going in the other way, stopping right there with the three vavs. I did see this a few times where I saw the concentration of three vavs sitting on each other, and it happened twice here, right by the access term, 666, 666. Donald Trump in the blue and Netanyahu in the orange. And I want to show you because we got Mikdash, which is the same word, HaMikdash, which is the temple, or, it could be used as the synagogue as well. We got the same word right here, which is the Mikdash of Yah. We're talking about the literal place where they're going to build this thing. And let's see what that verse is right there, which is Bamidbar, Numbers 19, literally the chapter. If you go to chapter 19, verse 1, this is where the ashes of the red heifer, this is where it's talked about right here. So let's go to verse 20. Verse 20, but the man shall be unclean and shall not purify himself, that the soul shall be cut off from among the congregation, because he hath defiled the sanctuary of Yah. The water of separation hath not been sprinkled. He is unclean. So that's just the verse I got highlighted that runs right through there. Of course, this is talking about the purification of the temple in chapter 19. So that's pretty amazing there. So that's the two codes that I've been trying to get out for the past day and a half, I guess. Worked on quite a while, and then had to completely redo. That's it. I'm sure that I will find more in this, but it's relevant right now. I wanted to get it out as quickly as I could. You guys, before I did this presentation, in between the other video coming down, I thought to myself, is all this worth it? What this is gonna bring upon me, revealing this kind of stuff and making all this aware? I don't know. We'll see. It usually brings trouble. And there used to be a day where I had people covering me, and I didn't have to worry about finances or anything like that. But things have changed. You know, your reputation gets tarnished, and you know, people avoid you, and then you put out controversial content nobody supports. They watch the video, but that's as far as it goes. I need help, folks. Please, if it not too much for you, you appreciate content like this, please help us with a donation. We got 2 that help regularly with this channel, and this bothers me. This makes me feel like I'm doing all this for nothing. I really am. I'm feeling discouraged, and yeah, I could use the help. So pray for me and this endeavor that we continue with. Shalom to you. Hope you see something in this.